Our gospel comes to us from Matthew, the 5th chapter. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. And he began to speak and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." This is the word of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord.
You may be seated. Thomas and Ellie, stick around for just a second, though, because I want to do a little children's time with you, because it is written in the bulletin, even though we did cancel Sunday school this morning on account of the snow. But before you sit down, though, which you've already done, I wanted to show you something in the back of the church. Okay, so come on over here, and you'll notice we've got, this might go unremarked on, but we have a couple of hanging quilts here, which are very pretty. Have you noticed this one? I would love if anybody in the congregation has the little history of why we have these quilts or who made them initially. Is there any? Say it again, Sarah? Languedoc. Okay. Yeah, so we actually have some really great textiles here in this church. One of the ways in which we tell the story of Christ is through art of all kinds. And I think there's something beautiful about using art. Quilts is a form of artistry. And what do you see on this quilt here? You see a star. In particular, how many points does the star have? 8. An 8-pointed star is traditional for Epiphany. We think about the star that led the wise men to see Jesus. And at that point in time, the message and what Jesus was going to say was very undefined. We kind of didn't know what it was supposed to be about. So the star kind of symbolizes mystery, too. And the 8-pointed star is interesting, too, because how many days of the week are there? 7. Even after your days are done, the 8-pointed star has one more day. For the days after the days are done. It's completion beyond completion is what it's supposed to symbolize. Pretty beautiful. So, and then we got another one on this side of the church, too. And this references the Bible verse that we talk about, Numbers 24:17. Yep. So, do you know who Jacob is? Yeah, we do. We talk about him in Sunday school sometimes. He's a guy who was renamed, which is a powerful biblical tradition of people getting a second name. Israel. Very good, Thomas. I love that. So he's renamed into Israel, and out of the lineage of the house of Jacob comes, well, for one thing, Jesus. So, and the message that came out through that too. So that's kind of one of the ways in which we like to tell the story is through these beautiful quilts. And we've only got a few more weeks of Epiphany before we redecorate. And that'll be kind of fun too, and we'll see what comes out then. But I want you guys to pay attention to these kind of things, because in addition to the words we speak and the songs we sing and the stuff that we all do together, the visual arts are another very powerful way that we tell the story. Okay, let's sing our song together. If anybody asks you who I am, who I am, who I am, if anybody asks you who I am, tell them I'm a child of God. Will you join me in prayer? O Lord, may the meditations of my heart and the words of my mouth be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. So, it's always tricky preaching on politics in this and any time, but it just needs to be said, and I don't care where people land on this. It's just true. Bill Belichick is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He is. It needs to be said. And our reach goes out beyond New England, and that might be a contentious thing for people elsewhere, but we know it in our hearts here that it was a snub, something on the highest order. It was just inexcusable what happened to Bill. But here's the thing. I want to provide you with a really spicy take on it, a really hot take. And you're going to take this take with you, and you're going to share it with other people. And what's going to happen is you're going to tell other people what your pastor said about this. They're going to hear it, and they're going to say, I want to go to that church. Because that's a place where truth is spoken. Bill Belichick getting snubbed in the first ballot for the Hall of Fame is a good thing. It's a good thing because there's only one thing that could have happened to him that would actually give him the media, the press, the controversy that he deserves for being an 8-time Super Bowl winning coach, 6 as head coach. And there's only one thing that could have happened that is commensurate with his achievements, and that's for him not to get first ballot Hall of Fame status. We're going to talk more about his achievements now because he was snubbed. And I think that that's the best thing he could do. And in many ways, what it does is it proves that his achievements were so big that they now outshadow the NFL Hall of Fame itself. Isn't that interesting that he actually gets more honor by the dishonor than he could have received? So it is interesting, and by the way, I do want to say, because we do have a big reach and we'll be reaching people outside of here, the excuses for why he didn't get on there of like the cheating, or he's just unlikable, or hoodies just aren't fashionable, I don't know what it is, but they all do fall short. There's obvious, and also that's not what's being, just because you don't like a guy, that's not what was up for debate. What was up for debate isn't, is Bill Belichick a fun person to hang around? No, he's probably not. He's probably not a fun person to hang around. Is he an NFL winningest coach of nearly all time? Yeah, that's what was actually up for debate, was football, okay? So that's the thing, and that's the vindication that we want for Bill Belichick is for that to be recognized. So you know what is actually an indicator of whether or not you're a good guy and whether or not you have been doing the right things? That actually is the gospel. So the gospel is where we should be looking for that kind of vindication. And the vindication that comes oftentimes from the Beatitudes of people seeing their fortunes reversed, Bill Belichick getting the honor he has deserved, that's a pretty traditional way of reading the Beatitudes. I know it sucks now. Jesus is going to turn this ship around. Pretty traditional way of reading it. I want to challenge that to a certain extent, though. So here are the words that are spoken, and we're going to return to Bill Belichick. I don't want you guys to feel like we're done with that, because there's more to be said, even than I've already said. But the words of the Beatitudes, pay attention carefully to who's mentioned. The poor in spirit, the meek, those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. You know, it was a point that Nietzsche made, where Nietzsche said that what's wrong with Christianity is that people who ought to be trying harder, the people who ought to not accept their lot in life, are told that actually it's okay. And he's really pointing at the Beatitudes by saying this is exactly what's wrong with Christianity, is it celebrates powerlessness, when instead you should be like me, like Friedrich Nietzsche, and celebrate strength and people working for it. But that is not exactly what is mentioned when you're saying poor in spirit, meekness, or those who hunger and thirst after righteousness. I think we actually have to hear those words and say that that's not a celebration of these people or of us when we're in that scenario. To be poor in spirit is to have an impoverishment. That's not good. It's not good to be found lacking in your very spirit. I don't know if you've ever felt that before, of just being like, gosh, I'm low energy as far as my spirit's concerned. I don't have what it takes today. That's not a good feeling, and that's not just like a gung-ho, good for you kind of thing. Honestly, one of the commentaries I read this week made the point very specific to say that poverty itself can often result in being poor in spirit. It sucks to be poor, and it can be heartbreaking. It can be spirit-crushing. What's ironic about poverty, the poverty angle, is the exact opposite can also be true. Having too much can also break a person's spirit. The case study, I'm not sure, do you guys ever watch the Michael Jordan documentary that came out, the Jordan thing? It's a broken man. Michael Jordan, I mean, it's terrible. I grew up watching, he's the greatest of all time. Kind of like Bill Belichick. But he was the greatest of all time, and he's a broken man now. And it's not that somehow failing is what made him a broken man. Ironically, it was succeeding. And the more you start to get in his headspace as a competitor, as a person who didn't have an off switch, as a person who only ever knew how to do things 100% or more, and was willing to sacrifice everything, do you see now that was always how this was going to end for him. And he's got yellow eyes now, and he's just chugging tequila. I feel sorry for the guy. I hope that he finds what Jesus promises, which is a restoration of his spirit from this place of brokenness. And the same thing goes for meekness and for hungering and thirsting. To be powerless and to not have control over your own life. The Bible doesn't just put a rubber stamp and say, good for you, way to be out of control. No, what the Bible calls us into, what Scripture tells us, is that we are supposed to find agency. We're supposed to not just long for things, we're supposed to actualize and be a part of shaping the future. That's what I think the Beatitudes actually is all about. It's dangerous because that word vindication is what I am worried you can turn this into instead. Of just people who are saying to themselves, oh man, hard to be me. I hope that someday I'm vindicated. I hope that someday it gets better for me. This isn't a someday kind of thing. This is a promise. This is a promise from God of the good news in Jesus Christ. Here's the other thing about the Bill Belichick deal. And it's what it is. In many ways, to say, hey, listen, the system that should have resulted in him getting first round, that's like the most prescient moment of existence that we're living in kind of thing, right? All around us, every single day in the news, everything we see is about the thing that should be happening and just isn't happening. I mean, forget the Epstein files, because that was another thing that we got this week. Remember the Panama Papers? Where we just heard about how like a massive proportion of people who have tons of wealth are just laundering it on the regular, and like that happened in 0 prosecutions, right? We still don't know the name of the guy who killed Alex Prig. I mean, that's in any normal law enforcement scenario where a Marblehead cop discharges his weapon, we would know about that, and there'd be an investigation tomorrow. I can guarantee you that. And it didn't happen. And we're supposed to just kind of live in this moment of broken systems that just, the vindication's not happening. It's not coming. It's not. This is the brokenness of the world that we've been preaching about here, out of this pulpit, and everywhere else for years and years. And the truth is that I think we were probably thought that people were being alarmist, or maybe it's not as bad as all that, or maybe it'll fix itself. It won't. It won't. It will take all of us, and it will take our efforts. And if it's just us on our own, if the whole point of what I'm preaching to you today is just to say, get out there and try harder, guys, that would be exhausting and hopeless. It would be. The things that we have to fix are gigantic. And that's why that's not my message this Sunday. My message to you coming out of the Beatitudes is a couple things. First of all, I hope this has been uncomfortable, because it should be. I hope that there's a chance for us to see in this that we're actually sometimes a part of the problem. We're not just the good guys in the Beatitudes. Sometimes we're the bad people who are putting people in positions of poverty. I hope you also hear, however, who this message comes from, because that's the most important part of this. when God on high, in human flesh, come to live among us, tells us who is to be blessed, you listen. You take that seriously. That is a declaration that cannot be undone or understated. Jesus himself is saying there will come a day when those who mourn will see joy, where those who want the right thing will see it happen. And I have to believe that the reason why they will see it happen is because God himself will be on our side, will be helping us in the struggle, in the battle, in everything that we need to do and we know we need to do. Jesus walks with us and declares to us that it will be done. Bill Belichick may never find his vindication, and there will maybe be moments in our lives where we worry that our vindication is not to be found in this life. It may not be. But in the thing that is unfolding around us, in God's kingdom, there will be a beautiful moment where the right is done among us, where death itself is undone, where we are filled with the power of God, with the love of God, and where we can make this world into the place that God always intended for it to be. And to that I say, thanks be to God. Amen.